Hello and welcome back to this video series on structured query language. In this video, what I'd like to do is use a tool called MySQL Workbench to create our database, create some tables, and then we'll populate those tables with some data, and then we'll begin to query those tables. So I'm going to show you how to do that within MySQL Workbench. And then this video doesn't get too long. I would like to show you how to do the same thing within the command line interface of how to create a database, how to create a table, and then how to insert a record, and how to query from that database table. So here's the learning activity that we're going to step through. So here we have two tables, artists and then album. And so I'll create both tables, but I'll primarily query from this album table in these first set of videos. So what I'm going to do is go back to MySQL Workbench. I'm going to create a new model. I'm going to name this database here, and I'll say album, artist. And then I'll just add a new diagram. And then here I'm going to drag and draw. So I have some controls to my left here to create this ERD diagram. And I'm going to recreate the same diagram that I have in this activity. So artist and album. And so let's go ahead and create those two tables. To do that, I'm going to click on where it says place a new table. I'll click on it and then I'll place it. And I'll do the same thing here. And I'll just double click on table 2. I'll name this album. And I'll name this one artist. And this is where I began to create and populate my tables. So the first table I'll populate is the artist table, and I'll add some columns. And then if I can do a side by side here, let's see if I can do that. All right, I think that's the best I'm gonna get, but that should work here. And so here, my first column is gonna be artist ID. That's gonna be an integer. It's gonna not null. PK stands for primary key, and then this will be auto increment. And then here, I'll say artist name. And then we'll varchar for the character count. I'll just give that 55. And I'll say not primary key, but not null. So didn't check primary key, but not null. So at this point, I have my artist table populated. And then now I want to go ahead and populate or provide some columns for my album table. And that'll be album name, album ID, album release year, album genre, and then album as a foreign key, album artist ID. So here, I'll double click on that one. That'll be an integer, primary key, not null. And then here, AI stands for auto increment. So it'll start at 1 and it'll go up to 2, whatever. So every record you create, it'll create a new unique ID. This one will be album name. And I'll make this a little bit bigger to about 100 characters. Say that's not null. And then here, this will be album release year. We'll add album genre. And then the last but not least, we'll add a foreign key, but I'm going to show you how I add that foreign key in just a second here. So at this moment, we have both our artists, and then we have our album table, and they both have columns associated with them. We're going to draw the relationship between the two tables. And so it's a one to many, or a many to one, if you go bidirectional or bidirection. And so what we're going to do is go back to MySQL Workbench. Okay, I had to pause the video for a quick moment there. So what I'm going to do is to basically establish the relationship between artist and album. I'm going to add a foreign key to album, because an artist can have one or more albums, and then the bidirection would be an album can have one artist. All right, so I did add album genre. That was one of the columns that I was missing. So what I want to do is now tie the relationship between artist and album. So I'll go to foreign keys, which is another tab at the bottom here. So I have currently on columns, and I want to go to foreign keys, and I am going to create a foreign key for my album table, and that'll be called album underscore artist ID. The reference table is going to be album artist, and then the column would be artist ID. So you'll see that it created this line here, or the relationship, a one to many, and that's what we want. The artist can have one or more albums, and the album can only have one artist. And so we're good to go there. And at this point, our table is formed. Our tables are formed. We have the relationship between the tables. If we wanted to, we can go ahead and click on this relationship line, and then you can see some more details that you could specify. So the foreign key, so one to many. So the primary key is an artist, and we have a foreign key in album, and then the primary key for album is album ID. It's a mandatory relationship, but in this case here, I don't want to make it an identifying relationship. So that takes out the solid line and give us the dotted line. These are two strong entities. They can stand alone. So it's not it's a weak relationship, but strong entities here. All right, so let's do this. Let's pause this video, and then when we get back, what we're doing in the next video is that we'll do something called forward engineering. Well, there's a tool in MySQL Workbench that allows us to create the SQL code based upon how we created this model. So we'll export this table into a SQL schema, and then we'll begin to add some records, and then we'll begin to query this database. So stay tuned. And just one small thing before I end this video, I did go back and actually click on the columns and add album underscore artist ID and made it an integer, so that this, and then I clicked on that and then clicked on the actual column that's being referenced. So just a quick update in terms of how I actually got that column to show up.